Dobro večer, dobro nam došli u još jedan webinar iz ciklusa predstavljamo istaknute grupe na eTwinningu. Za naše kolegice i kolege iz Hrvatske podsjećamo da ukoliko se niste uspjeli prijaviti u sustavu EMA, da nam napišete svoju škole HR adresu ovdje u chatu da vas možemo naknadno dodati i obavezno molimo vas, ako vam slučajno nije puno ime i prezime u samoj aplikaciji, napišite nam onda i puno ime i prezime, jer tako vas možemo onda točno dodati na popis za dodjelu potvrda. That's all from me regarding our Croatian participants. Anita, maybe you can now say a few things for our participants from abroad. Who is here from abroad? Where do you come from? You can write in the chat maybe so that we can see. I think we have some people from abroad.
I think so too. A warm welcome to everyone from me as well, from sunny and warm Zadar. It feels like summer is just around the corner, so I'm hoping the weather lasts. Alenka is joining us from Rovinj, so she's not in her hometown today either. She's at a big, if not the biggest, conference in Croatia for technology and education. So it's lovely to see her join us today after the workshops she did. But I will just formally start with the introductory video, which only lasts about a minute. So here we go. Turn the music on. Okay, for all our participants who are not from Croatia, if you would like a certificate of attendance, please just write down your full name and email address in the chat, and we'll be happy to forward it to our national agency and you'll be issued a certificate. So that's it from me. I'll hand over to my co-host for the next section.
Thank you. Marie Louise, we would like to invite you to turn on your camera. And while you do that and share your presentation, I would like to also to mention that this is actually our last webinar this school year. We'll have like a short break in the few next month, right during the summer, and we will meet and see each other again in September. That's the plan that the national agency has. So it's, in my opinion, it's quite an interesting topic to finish this cycles of this year that we've had. We've had really a lot. I think it's the 13th.
Yes, lucky 13.
International, lucky 13th. Yeah.
When we started this series of webinars, I thought, my goodness, 13 webinars. It sounds, like a lot. And it's just flown by because each presenter has really been unique, very motivational. The topics have been very varied. So it's great to have a featured group for the end of this series, and I'm really looking forward to having you. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, and we also all hope that the groups will be full of materials by September when we plan to meet again. So Marie, please share your screen, your presentation in any way you like it, and we can start.
See if I can do it now.
So the whole Take it easy.
It's always
Yeah, I'd like to also I'd like to say to our participants that they can write their questions. If they have questions during the presentation, they can write them in the chat. Anita usually has a little bit tradition, I'd say, a little tradition of stopping our guests, giving them a little time to catch some breath, and she will share some questions then around 7:30, I think. Or Marie Louise, when you feel like stopping maybe and have a chat with us, and maybe if you want to, add some additional comments, please do so. Feel free.
okay. Yes.
I know,
Right, thank you.
we know you can't see the chat as you're presenting, so don't worry about that. Any questions or comments that there are, as Alenka said, about halfway through the webinar, we can have a bit of a break to go through some points and questions. So the floor is yours. Thank you once again.
Okay, well, thank you very much for this, also for the invitation. I think it's great that the creation that you as ambassadors take this initiative, and I told it to my NSO in Denmark that you were doing this, and maybe we should do something similar. I'll start the presentation, and just very shortly about myself. I'm a teacher in Denmark and been teaching for many years. And right now I teach in what is called 10th grade center. Like it's an extra year you can have in school in Denmark when you're 16. And in a few years after I became a teacher, I took a supplementary degree in women's studies, and I've always had this interest in gender issues. And then as you can see, I've been an eTwinner for many years, and I became an ambassador. And then in 2017, I got the idea to create this group on the old platform that I called, it's very long, Gender Know-How to Stop Stereotypes. And in the beginning, nobody came by, and then I was very lucky that it became featured, so it got more sort of publicity. This is how it looked on the old platform. And the idea was, because I'm also a French teacher, to have materials in English and French and Scandinavian languages on gender and sexuality issues. And for instance, we'll have group meetings every now and then. And this is just, I think this was the last group meeting we had, I think on the old platform. We have, of course, there are no group meetings now, and this could be this just an idea of what we could have on the agenda. So like, as you can see here, the 8th, it was on the, I think it was on the 8th of March. Yeah, we did this group meeting, and then I shared something from in Denmark, we have this, we call the week 6, where we have focus on sexuality education in schools. And other group meetings would be sharing in a Padlet, as you could see here. And it could also be sharing of materials and project. This was from French eTwinners, or French-speaking eTwinners from Greece and France and different countries. They had this project, so that would be sharing, and they got and as you can see, a quality label. But the idea was also to, it still is the idea to share materials. And this is just a screenshot from the old platform. As you can see on the left side, different topics that where all kinds of links I gathered together, mainly in English, but some in French too. Actually, the video down, as you can see, is in French. It's very interesting. It's you can use English subtitles for. It's about this French geographer who's really an expert in the playgrounds, and she has done a lot of studies and how some ball games dominate the center of the playgrounds, and how other students are sort of squeezed into the periphery, and how you can prevent this if you do some good structures in your playground. And yeah, this is just another example. Norm criticism, maybe not all know about this. This started in Sweden, and it's probably more known than it was in when it started. But this sort of norm critical pedagogy to especially in regard to gender, but it could also be in regard to disability or sexuality, that questioning, instead of questioning questioning what is the norm and what is considered normal, instead of just being tolerant to people or who are different according to this sort of norm. Yeah, so this just gives you an idea that there could be English, Danish, Scandinavian material, and of course I have copied many of these links, and they could be maybe recopied, but the idea was that the whole stuff should be migrated. But you have probably heard this from the other speakers, I suppose. Yeah, it could also be the polls we would have on LGBTI inclusion in our schools, and that was also an interesting way of looking at things. Yeah, and as you can see just from the screenshot, only 3 schools, and it's not mine, have policies on inclusion. Most does not have any, or as you can see, is too much of a taboo. And again, with the playground, have polls, and as you can see, this was just the question: if you observe this pattern that the French geographer speaks about, and most people had observed this. Observe this pattern with the boys who plays football that dominate most of the space. And then we would have the possibility to have a discussion in the group. The group was also not only having materials and sharing, but also that I would have the possibility to invite guest speakers. And this was the last. No, this was not the last. One of the last guest speakers I had. I had one more. About the angry internet. This was actually a Danish speaker. I'll say a little short about it later. Yeah. These are screenshots from some of this was actually the first speaker I had invited, and this is the French geographer, and this was in French. But and as I said, most of the of course most of the things going on eTwinning is in English, but of course there are a lot of French-speaking countries among, and there are French teachers. I don't know if any of the participants are French-speaking, but maybe you can tell me that maybe later. This was also one of the other French guest speakers who has this interesting talk, interesting talk about how to have mixity, as it's called in French, how to do more activities that make the boys and girls do more things together in school or in other areas. Another example was some of the Danish guest speakers I had on sexuality education, as we in Denmark have a long tradition since 1970 having sexuality education in school, and this was also a very interesting talk, because at that time there were, I think, quite a lot of participants, and also from countries where maybe not this kind of education is so obvious to have. This is also from the same screenshot from the same talk on how to make good sexuality education. And as you can see also in the chat there, it was quite a lively discussion. I also had guest speakers on. This is from Britain, and unfortunately Britain is not with Brexit, but I've still had British speakers who would like to do talks for the community. And then in the top orange you could see how it was announced and under professional development. And this was something which is very interesting, how they have done this huge survey in Britain among all the school teachers in secondary schools, and what kind of curriculum, what kind of authors do they make the students read, and showing that there's been mainly a strong male representation and sort of invisibility of women. As I pointed out, they had this point that they said the idea was to making the connection between invisibility of women in the curriculum and sexual harassment, sexism. So that was an interesting talk that also in here, as you can see, this is a screenshot from a Padlet where some of the participants, also you can see from Croatia, that in many countries it's maybe a bit the same, that you have the students read more men, or the main character is a boy or a young man. And I also think it was very interesting to hear the talk that there is this narrative that boys only want to read about boys. And it turns out this is not true. They actually do want to read about. They are actually curious about what's it like to be a girl, and so the idea was to put more attention to this. And this talk was in December, just before the eTwinning platform, like half year before the eTwinning platform sort of ended the old one. And so this work about asking other teachers around Europe through eTwinning sort of stranded a bit. But I think it's a very interesting debate, and that they raised, these British teachers. And another, as I mentioned before, the angry internet. This was done on YouTube. This is also on YouTube. You can find this talk on YouTube. But also very interesting from the Danish. We have a center called the Danish. What's it called in English? The Digital Youth. I forgot. Excuse me. I forgot the name in English. But they had this organization that have a huge knowledge on what's going on all the digital stuff and how it's used in education and among young people. And they have a couple of years ago, they made a huge survey and research on the angry internet in the Nordic countries. And they found out on the sort of dark internet, all these angry, mainly young men. They're very angry about all kinds of things. And they're also angry about women and think that their feminism has gone too far. And the researchers, they actually got in contact with some of them and make interviews, and found out that they're actually quite vulnerable, these young men. And just to give you the conclusion of the research, what they think should be done is to teach boys and young men to be allowed to express other feelings and anger. Because maybe there are beneath the anger, there are other feelings like vulnerability and sadness, etc. And this you can find this talk on YouTube. This is just to give you a list, or not that I'm going to read all of them, but to give you an idea of throughout these years who are invited. As you can see, some of it has been on LGBTI inclusion, and some of it has been in like the Swedish and the gender neutral pedagogy in Sweden's kindergarten. The Swedes have very early came out with challenging gender stereotypes. And some of it has been in French. And if any of you are French teacher, then the number 3, Bison contre le sexisme, is a really interesting, also this organization in France. And they have this video contest that you can, where your students can join every year. And then the deadline is normally in December to apply. And then to hand in the film is in March. And then you make, I did it once, and you can make your students work with the topic in regard to gender. I also want to point out the one called Feminism in School with the teacher from the UK. It was very interesting how she'd done organized these clubs in her school environment where students, boys and girls, to talk about feminism and what could be done to enhance that. Yeah. And also one of the top one, the new masculinity, were actually from a teacher from Spain that I know through the gender group, who did this interesting talk on new masculinities. There's a lot of research on that in Spain. And also the last one, if you can see that, the visibles intersex, also very interesting, has also been recorded and should be able to be seen, is about intersex students or people, intersex people. A lot of people do not know about intersex, yeah, and this was an intersex activist from Austria who did this talk. Yeah, so this was just an idea of some of the guest speakers, and now this is how the group looks like on the new platform, and the challenge is that I don't have the same possibility to write to the members, and I think it's not only recently that the group appeared on the new platform, and so I'm waiting, hoping to have more news next week if materials will be migrated or if I should just upload something myself. But the crucial thing is to have people to find the group, because you can't really see it on the new platform, and then to have people engage in sharing materials and having discussions. And of course, it helps that now the platform was working. The speed of the platform has gone up lately. Before, as you all know, it was quite slow. So this is about the group, and because then I'll speak a little bit also about some of the projects I've done, some of them related to gender. And I don't know if I should take then a little, if somebody has some questions regarding the group or some of the talks.
Marie Louise, I can ask a few questions if that's okay for
Yes.
a break. If you want to stop sharing the screen so you can see me, we can do it maybe that way.
Yeah, I'll just do that.
And then you can go back to your presentation. That's great. That's lovely. So you can see me.
Yes, now I can see you.
Great, yeah. Excellent. I wanted to ask about the curriculum in Denmark. Did you say you work in Denmark?
Yes. Yeah.
How is the curriculum modified towards this type of education that you're talking about? Are the children taught from a certain grade level with regards to, you know, these kind of topics? Is there a specific subject, or is it kind of interwoven between different subjects such as biology and sciences and so forth? How is that approached in Denmark specifically?
Yes, there is a curriculum, and it's from all ages. So in Denmark, you start school when you're around 6, and you have 10 years of school. So the curriculum is so it's sort of into blocks. So I think from 6 to your 10 years, and then from your 10 to 12, and then the last 3 years, something like that. So the idea with the sexuality education in Denmark is actually called sexuality. You know, it's called something with health and and family and sexuality education. These 3 words, and you can integrate it in any subject. So you can integrate it in biology, English, Danish, history, whatever subject. Sports. And so as any teacher can say, okay, today I want to do something and talk about this issue. And the problem with the challenge for the curriculum is that it doesn't say, okay, this teacher must do it this period, and there isn't. There are not. By the way, there are no exams, but so like 10 years ago, this the biggest NGO or organization that provide the ones that I had invited, they're called Sex and Society. They provide a lot of materials, and other people or publishers provide too, but they have a very they came up with this idea that we have the week 6 because it's the same sort of sound, uge 6 in Danish. So in February, and there's a lot of schools that take the whole week for sexuality education, but most schools also have it during the year if they don't, maybe it doesn't go well with that week. But you can have it in all subjects or all through the year, and all children must, from age 6 and up to 16, must have it.
Okay, but you seem to have a lot of freedom, is what you're saying, as to how you want to include it in your lessons, or teachers are allowed maybe with their formed classes to have a lesson dedicated to the sex education. Is that how it works? So it's not actually set per se within each subject, but you can kind of mix and match when you feel it's most appropriate. Did I understand that correct? Okay. Well, that's kind of like a good thing, I suppose. But because you have the freedom, but when it's not structured, then there's also
and that's a problem. And every year there's a debate. Not every year, but there's often a debate if it's does everyone because are they sure that they have gotten all the stuff they should know, but the curriculum is very structured, and with when you're after this age you must have knowledge about this and this and this, and after this age, like as I said, there are 3 periods that it's divided into, then you must have knowledge about this and this.
Okay, so that in that sense it is structured. The kind of goals of learning must be kind of adhered to. Okay, I also wanted to mention you were talking about the angry men video. I have to have a look at that, find that link, and then I'll stick it in the chat. But I think from my own personal experience, I tend to find people who are very angry, there's got to be some kind of underlying problem in the background. You were talking about vulnerability with these men. So it's often, I find people are angry if they're not happy with something that's going on within their own life, and then they channel it towards a certain group, whether it's a gender or a race or an ethnicity and so forth, and then it takes a lot of patience and understanding to inform these people, because they're mainly misinformed, aren't they? And then they're directing their anger towards the wrong people when they should be looking to themselves and trying to find help. I think that's what you were trying to say, and is that what the video really is about?
The talk is about the research they did, where they sort of in the Nordic countries on the internet sort of found, I think it was up to 800 men who sort of had this spreading of misogynist things or anti-feminist views, or a lot of anger, and then and they say, okay, 800 doesn't sound like a lot. It's like Nordic countries that spread out through these countries, but the problem is all the young people who follow them or on the internet or listen to their views or watch their videos or jokes or whatever it could, memes or things like that, and then, as they said, when it's a report that came out, and it's in English too, the angry internet, and that was his main conclusion at the end of the talk, that we need to teach boys to express other feelings and anger, because there is this idea of masculinity, that you cannot show feelings, that the only feeling you are sort of allowed to show is anger, and so a lot of things could be maybe have been expressed in another way.
Yeah, exactly. I know definitely in most cultures, the sense of strength is associated with as a masculine trait, for example. But then I tend to say to my students, you know, be strong like a woman, and then they all tend to laugh because, you know, usually kind of isn't strength related to men, and then this always gets some, you know, a discussion going. So I think you have to approach this topic with some sensitivity with regards to the age of children you're teaching as well. You know, the children that I teach are between the ages of 10 and 14. So at the young scale of 10, you know, I approach it completely differently than I would with the older children. But one more question that I wanted to ask before I let you get back to your presentation is, you mentioned some Spanish, it wasn't a video, it was also some research done in Spain, wasn't it? And you mentioned reports from there. Have you found that it's very different, some of these reports and the results from them, when you compare Mediterranean countries, for example, or countries such as the Nordic ones and Denmark? And how do you find the results when comparing these reports and researching this topic of sexuality?
I think you maybe was it that I mentioned an eTwinning teacher who had done a talk about new masculinities?
Yes, that's it.
What is interesting, because actually my school is going to be in a project with Spain, but I think it probably depends. Of course, there are differences from the Mediterranean and maybe Nordic countries, but on the other hand, I think I can't really reply to that question, because I haven't read all the research from Spain. So I wouldn't have a qualified question for that. But I think it's interesting.
I just wondered because a lot of the times, you know, when we have guests from other countries, you know, we say there's a lot of similarities between the children and the problems that we face as teachers and so forth. But I wonder if you delve deep into, you know, the cultural aspects and different backgrounds of you know, countries. Is there like a huge difference when it comes to these topics and the way even sexuality is taught with regards to, I don't know, I have a perception that things are much more open-minded and people are much more open-minded, you know, the further north you go in Europe. But I'm not sure if that is completely true. I don't know, Alenka, if you have like a completely different view.
I was actually quite surprised to see that you don't have like a special curriculum, but you just said the teachers can do that if they want it. They can teach about sexuality.
No, we have a curriculum.
You do have a curriculum.
Yeah. We have a very, very strict curriculum
okay.
for sexuality education. But the thing is, for instance, one of the goals could be to know something about different sexualities, or that could be a goal that how do you say, something that the student must know at a certain age.
Okay. And so you have a subject called sexuality education.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have it's not a subject, but it's so it's not like when the children have a school timetable and then it says on Friday we have sexuality education. That's maybe this has been discussed that it's a problem, that it's not like that.
It's a problem, I'm sure.
But on the other hand, the fact that it can be integrated be integrated in any subject means that any teacher can, like in English, as an English teacher, you could read a text about homosexuality, or you could read about trans. Yeah.
But here like I see the problem. Yeah. I see the problem because people are not prepared to talk about these topics, you know. And in my opinion, what our policymakers should do, they should really educate teachers to run these subjects or give courses or lessons or workshops at school with students about that topic of education. So, you know, it can be done, but it also doesn't have to be done. And this is what worries me. And this is what happened in Croatia a few years ago. We received like a handbook about health education, and of course sexuality education was also implemented in it. But the problem was, you know, teachers would write the topic in their books, but they wouldn't really talk about the topics to students, and there is still no way to check it, you know, to assess this kind of topics or this kind of knowledge. As you said, at some point you have to know something about something, but when and how to check it if it's really there, you know. Why I mentioned that is because just a week ago I met some colleagues from Ireland, and they do have like sexuality education as a subject, but they also have teachers who attend lessons in order to learn, like teacher trainings, in order to learn how to talk to kids about these topics, which I think is really like a good policy to do. Yeah.
Yeah, education. I know from that the young people or people who study to become in Denmark, we call like educators in kindergartens and what we call in Danish pædagog or pedagogues. They in their education they have a module about sexuality, norm criticism, these issues, and I know that young and that now at least you can, as a young teacher student training student, can how do you say, have an optional course on this. So it's not compulsory
It's
yet.
not mandatory. Yes.
No,
Yes.
but it's on. It's when I was studied to become a teacher, this wasn't possible. It was, yeah, but a lot of some people also maybe have, okay, say in their team, okay, we will do it. We will make sure that we will teach. Some teacher would say that, like in our school.
I must admit that it's really similar to Croatian approach, right, Anita? We have like similar approach. We also talk about kids on different topics in different lessons. In English, you can talk about anything. Special needs, people, sexuality.
That's
but
right.
It depends on the teacher, and this is not good, you know, when you leave this kind of topic just lying on the enthusiasts. If you have them at school, maybe you don't have them. So, you know, it's something that, in my opinion, should be well structured and, you know, checked and assessed and supported.
In Croatia, there's a big, I'd say, emphasis on an interdisciplinary approach. So it's very much encouraged that, you know, subjects are connected and so are topics. But as Alenka said, there's also a lot of freedom. So how much an individual teacher spends on a certain topic is not really monitored or assessed to any extent. But when it comes to very important topics, it would be good that teachers are given more education. I think this is also the issue. You know, more teachers should be helped along the way when it comes to topics such as these, because some just are not very sure as to how to approach certain things. I think that's the issue. It's not for a lack of wanting to make a difference, because teachers are a very specific breed when it comes to, you know, being empathetic, wanting to advance their knowledge. It's just a case of educating us as well. So that's why webinars such as these are very important, I think.
Yes, and even if a teacher has a will to do it and doesn't know how, it could be a bigger problem, or it could make a bigger problem to talk about some topics, but in the wrong way. You know, So yeah, thanks, Marie. Thanks, Marie.
I can just say that some years ago I tried to I tried to convince somebody in eTwinning, sort of in the system, that when as an eTwin on the old platform, you would scroll and you could choose subjects like astronomy or mathematics, then there should be sexuality education. And after a long period of waiting for an answer, some advisory board, I don't know who dealt with it, I got the answer that it was a translation problem. So I think it's a long way because of and I don't. Yeah. Okay. Should I go back to sharing?
Yes, of course. Yeah, Anita, if people don't feel comfortable and authentic about any topic,
this is it. This is it. Yeah.
Yeah, we think it's better to let it go.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to teach or do anything outside your comfort zone is always a challenge, and then some people would rather not be tested in this way. So joining groups such as this one on eTwinning is a great way, I think, to educate yourself, meet people, and gain more knowledge, ask questions. So yeah, definitely it will be great if people could join groups such as yours. Okay, that's it, because time is ticking away, and we're still talking. So we'll let you get back to your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, some of it can just go faster through. Yeah, as you all know, I suppose participants are aware of this is how the twin space. I think I'll just flip. I did a project some years ago at another school I worked with France, and we called it No Gender, No Fear. And so we would present our schools, and for instance, these are the pictures from our school where we did an exhibition on LGBTQ rights in different countries. And so both the thing we did in the eTwinning project, the whole school could benefit from, and then it was also part of the eTwinning project. And then we would work on with gender roles. The students would do things that they would share with the other ones, and they would. This was a Danish video with a lot of gender stereotypes, and they translated some of the songs, the Danish songs, where there were some gender stereotypes. And this was from the French students who had looked at some magazines, and then they also worked with the gender stereotypes. I would also like to show, just say something about a project I did with Finland, and we called it Empathy in Social Media, because we wanted to have focus on the positive thing. But we both attended a online seminar on hate speech, and as you probably know, there is a lot of homophobic hate speech. But we have the students discussing something about politeness and bullying and things like that. And then the Finnish students, who were 2 or 3 years older than mine, so they were like 16 and mine were 13. They made a presentation on hate speech, and you can see pictures of my students. The top photo is my students watching the Finnish students doing their presentation on hate speech. And as you probably know, it's always difficult in eTwinning project to find the time where you can meet at the same time. And then Finland had 1 hour. I think they were ahead of us. And in the old eTwinning twin space, when you had to book something, it didn't work with the clock. And I remember some challenges. And they did a Kahoot to check the result, if the Danish students had paid attention to the presentation. And then we did, and then we had, as I said, we have this week 6, and then it was in the week 6, we had, so in English, in my English class, then I would say, okay, we're going to have attention. We are doing our eTwinning project, and we're going to have the focus on the transphobic and homophobic hate speech. And so these are just from the presentations. If you don't know, this genderbread person is really it's a good, I think he's a good figure to explain these issues to students. And actually the screenshot of this video, it's in Danish, but you can find them on the internet too, and with English subtitles. There are 3, and I can also share them later to you, Alenka and Anita, about having other sexuality gender identities. And this is just an example from the feedback from the Danish students after the eTwinning project, and I think it was quite, they really, I think they learned a lot about hate speech, and there's so much about sexuality and racism too. This project did not really have anything to do with the gender or issues, but what I just want to show, we had mixed groups, and then we did many things, but just one of them I think was nice, that in the groups they prepared questions to do interviews on, and then this is from Slovenia, and so they interviewed all elder people. And with the same questions that then the Danish students, we cycled to a nearby old people's home, and they made the same interviews. This is at my new school where I've been the last 3 years, and we did something on alcohol and drugs. We didn't have so much time, but it could also have been related to gender. This is my latest project, and this is it's ongoing, as you can see, and this is on the new platform with all the challenges that has been. When this is with Czech Republic, Italy, and Denmark, and so this is, again, we have these mixed groups, and the idea is that they have had conversations, and we did it in the Padlet, because at that time the platform was so slow, we didn't dare using the TwinSpace really. But we have 7 groups, and they're all mixed, and then they have been just having little conversations about music, spare time, as you can see, school life, social media, summer holiday, very sort of easy subject. But then we said, okay, at the end we want to have some topics that we want them to debate, and so we had decided on 3 topics. As you can see, this is about abortion, and then one, if you look to the left, you can also see discussion on gender equality, and then a discussion on using mobile phones in the class. And we are at that point where my students, they have written a few things in the TwinSpace, in the forum, which then have started working. And because in Denmark and also in the municipality where I work, there are really strict GDPR rules. So actually we're not supposed to, the book creator and Padlet and things where your data is recorded are being questioned or being put on a halt, because they don't really sort of, in the GDPR sense, do not trust these platforms. But the Italian and Czech students, they have been using something called Flipgrid. Maybe, I don't know, I didn't know it before, where they have where they can record and their opinions on abortion and gender equality and mobile phones. But mine are doing written. And then I just want to finish off with a project that we did within the group, the gender group, but without students. So if you remember, we had this on the 8th of March, we had a group meeting, and we launched this together with me and another Danish eTwinner who's also a member of the group. We launched this project on the 8th of March, and the idea was that it should be very positive, to simply make documentation of all the progression we could see in our experience in our own countries in regard to gender or sexuality. And I only have this screenshot from the TwinSpace that I took, and we were about 15 teachers from I think 10 different countries, and throughout the months we would share just very short things. We would write a little article and always have the link. As you can see, if you look to the right, there was a wonderful exhibition in the center of Copenhagen called 50 Queens, and you would see, maybe you can see in the picture, these white blocks, and each block that shows a woman, a Danish woman who could have been known for what they did, and who have been sort of made invisible, and or that nobody cared to do a statue of them. And there was also this thing about that we have more statues of animals than of women in Denmark. But it was very interesting. But the idea was that the project should run to December, but then with the platform, it just sort of it kind of stopped. Yeah. So this with this, I think I will end here. And so thank you for your attention. And I will go back, stop sharing.
Thank you, Marie Louise. I just saw on your next to last slide, you had a post next to yours from Natalia Zizi, who is on our webinar series on Tuesday. So she's another one of those eTwinners who is everywhere and who loves to keep on learning.
Oh, Irena from Slovenia, my dear friend and colleague. I've had many collaboration projects with Irena. She used to be also an eTwinning ambassador in Slovenia.
Okay.
And also, she also gave some speeches at our webinars during the lockdown also.
Okay, and that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. She presented a project which was, I think, a runner-up one year in for European prizes, eTwinning prizes. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And she got the prize.
I think they were runner-ups. They like second. I think it was something connected to Harry Potter. So it was this kind of project. It was really, really interesting. Yeah. So Anita, a lot of familiar names all the time.
Yes,
I mean, you're circling.
Yeah.
You're circling.
I mean, it's great. It's great to see so many eTwinners from different countries as well getting involved and just sharing their experiences and learning and sharing their learning. So it was a very interesting topic. The 1 hour is not really nearly enough, but it's enough to kind of dip your toe and want to research a little bit more on a topic that is definitely very important, because equality is really the foundation for tolerance at the end of the day, isn't it? And if we are all just happy with our own lives and tolerant of the people around us, and have a positive outlook on life, then surely that's only a good thing at the end of the day. So eTwinning is a great platform for educating not only our pupils but each other. So it's been a great webinar. As Alenka said, once the platform is up and running properly, in the autumn, perhaps you can come back, and then we can get our more participants and who can join the group, and maybe we can have more of an interactive session that time, and have people maybe writing something down in the group or on a Padlet, or maybe make it a little bit different and get people talking. It's great to hear views, but it's also, I think, great to discuss issues amongst ourselves. So
I managed to find the group. It is
great.
On 326th page. So 326, and it's unbelievable that you can't really filter. You can't search the groups, and it should be fixed. So Marie Louise, maybe if you have people you're communicating to about all these issues that you've had so far, maybe you can also mention, because it's impossible to find all the groups just, you know, by listing little by little over 300 pages there. So it would be good to be able to filter it.
Yeah, it's just one of those other things that's on the to-do list for the new ESET platform. But
there's
again,
also, sorry, there's also this thing, and I noticed that I made, just when it reopened, but being empty, then I made a post to say, okay, we are here and back, and maybe one person made a comment or two, but on the old platform you could see the name of the person who had commented, but now you can't. And that, because that's also a way of getting, okay, we have one person here who's active and who's interested, but it's so people have become more invisible in a certain extent.
Yeah, I know it can only get better, but as you mentioned, the platforms picked up speed, and I think the worst is behind us. So when we come back after the summer, I'm sure it will all be good. I wanted to thank you very much for spending the hour with us, for joining us this evening. And to all our participants, the meeting has been recorded, so it will be uploaded on the Croatian eTwinning YouTube channel, but I'm sure it will be shared amongst other platforms, because the webinars are held in English, so it's a great way to disseminate important topics amongst all the eTwinning countries and far beyond. So thank you from me, and I just wanted to wish Alenka a safe journey home tomorrow. And
thank you
for joining us.
I'm joining the pub quiz after the dinner. Yeah, I said to my group members, that I'm not really very good, but I would really like to join and to have a good laugh with them.
Excellent.
This is my goal for the pub quiz this evening. And Marie Louise, I wanted to ask you how to say "see you again" in Danish.
Sorry, how to what?
See you again in Danish.
Vi ses. Vi ses.
Vi ses.
Vi ses. Vi ses.
Okay.
Vi ses again. Vi ses again. And thank you for inviting me. That was interesting to join your webinar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we are really happy that a lot of people in the eTwinning community like this initiative that we started in Croatia. We thought, about giving webinars and always keeping it in Croatian borders is a bit not like an eTwinning spirit. So
no.
We wanted to support our teachers also from Croatia to join different conferences, and not to be afraid to speak in English. This is also one of the goals that we have, giving all these webinars in English. So thanks again, Visje. And
a
how
good
do you say it in
evening.
Croatian? How do you say it in Croatian?
Vidimo se.
Vidimo se.
Excellent.
Excellent. It's similar to Danish. Starts with we.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone.
Bye.
Good
Yes,
night.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Doviđenja. Vidimo se. Pozdrav.